Hey guys, what's up? It is week 113. I'll start this off with reminding you guys that the Sangre contest is still going on. If you want to enter for a chance to win the Sangre 4K from Severn Films, all you have to do is send an email to screamingtoiletcontest@gmail.com. I will draw next week. Next week I'll draw for the winner. Basically, you'll probably get some MVD ads and that kind of thing, but that's pretty much it. So this bad boy is loaded. It's got lots of great features. It's an excellent cult crazy movie by Alejandro Jodorowsky. If you want more information, check out probably a month ago I covered it, reviewed it. It's a great release. So yeah, it's loaded. Like I said, Blu-ray, 4K. I will ship overseas, so good luck. So we're gonna hop into the reviews, and I generally hate doing this. I almost sometimes don't want to cover indie films or newer indie films because if I have anything negative to say, I kind of feel bad about it. I normally feel bad about it. I know how hard it is to make an indie film. I know how hard it is to make a film in general. I don't know anything about making big budget movies, but cheap, low budget movies, it's a lot of hard work. So hopping into this one, it comes to Lieutenant Jangles. This is a Scream team releasing. This is an Australian film, I believe, and yeah. So when it comes to comedy, right? Comedy is the most subjective thing. My friends used to joke around and call me the comedy police because I'd be like, that's not funny, and I'd see other people laugh and I'd be annoyed by it. It's just a thing that hopefully I outgrew. But so this film is kind of like a throwback to old school action movies. It's a parody. It's very over the top. It's done in that kind of ridiculous style with the over exaggerated CGI and laser blast. It's a buddy cop throwback. There's as much kind of parody in here and shout outs to a bunch of kind of other films like that. So it's absolutely over the top and ridiculous. The characters here, and here's what it comes to. The first 20 minutes, I was in absolute hell, because I had to adjust to the comedy and everything like that. And it's a buddy cop movie, like I said, so it's absolutely over the top. And it feels like insincere. Like a lot of the comedy, it's a lot of inside jokes. It's kind of like being at the 7th grade lunch table and making a lot of jokes that are hilarious to you and your friends. But now as I've grown up, I'm kind of like the teacher that walks by and overhears it. I'm just like, so stupid. So, like I said, it just feels very unfunny to me. There's lots of dick jokes and fart jokes, and essentially it's just absolutely ridiculous. After about the first 30 minutes, I started kind of adjusting. I didn't laugh at all. I never laughed once during the film, which is just a subject thing here. You know, it's just not funny to me. It just does not work for me. And who's to say a lot of other people will kind of enjoy this thing. I also didn't care for Dude Bro Party Massacre Part 3 or whatever. Didn't laugh at all, even though I saw a lot of the hard work in here. And this one does have like a lot of like elements to enjoy. It's just the comedy does not land at all for me. I just don't find it very funny. It's just not good comedy for me. So, it's basically a lot of action in the very beginning. There's a group of like every criminal's been hired by this mastermind who is kidnapping all these like hunky muscular guys, and he's doing experiments on them and everything like that. But he hires all these criminals to kind of attack the cops and attack the city. The main character is Lieutenant Jangles. He obviously has like some partners. Right in the beginning, his main partner dies, where he cries over his dick. His dick was shot out. Keeps bringing it up. All sorts of that kind of thing. And he has a new partner. Of course, he's not happy with the new partner. It's all the typical stereotypical like jokes. It's a parody of those kind of things, like I don't want my new partner. The chief's angry. He's always yelling. It's all the same stuff. But if this would have been done a little bit more sincere, like even if you look at a lot of modern films, like even The Nice Guys, it's a buddy kind of cop movie or a buddy movie, and it is almost a parody of it too at this point. But it's so sincere and so great. It's just such a weird genre to spoof, and Hot Fuzz does it perfect. The kind of crime police procedural buddy cop movie, it's absolutely wonderful how it spoofs it. It uses clever comedy, reoccurring themes, just shout outs. They come back. There's setups and payoffs, and I guess there is that kind of stuff in here too, but it just feels very 7th grade comedy level, and like there's all this hard work. There's so much hard work put into this, and I'm not even one to complain about the CGI. The CGI stuff, it works for this kind of movie. There's lasers and everything, and people getting shot, and just like people exploding. It's just like cheesy, shoddy effects that are almost done to the films, you know, kind of trying to do like the whole parody thing or whatever it fits into it. That doesn't bother me. It just comes down to kind of like the absolute ridiculous comedy that just never works for me. And I feel bad saying that because there's a lot of things that other people really like about the movie, to be honest. It's a timepiece. Like, I just can't say many things about it. At the end of the movie, I started to kind of enjoy myself. That they do actually set up some baddies, and the baddies like do come back at the end. I like that. There's some showdowns in here. I just don't have many positive things to say about the film. Like I said, there's a lot of hard work, and I'm just like stumbling over my words to try to find something that I really enjoyed about it. It's just really not coming to me because I try to be positive. If you'll find it funny, if you find that kind of like Astron 6 style comedy funny, and don't get me wrong, this isn't Astron 6 because I love Astron 6. The thing is, like when you look at something like Psycho Gorman, yes, some of the characters are over the top, the situation is over the top, and Psycho Gorman himself as an entity is absolutely ridiculous, but Psycho Gorman does not walk through the movie being like, oh, I like farts, yeah. I mean, like, he'll say that stuff only because he's repeating what he's heard. He's playing it deadpan serious. Like, he's like, I will kill you and rip you to soul. Like, it works that somebody is playing it straight. You need a straight anchor in these movies. If everybody is just off the fucking wall, it just loses it for me. And it feels like a lot of, like, I feel like it's a lot of, you know, just riffing back and forth, and it's just when everybody's doing it just gets out of hand, and there's just outrageous jokes like that come out of nowhere that just don't seem to know when to end, and it's just not very funny. It just doesn't feel grounded enough to actually get any humor out of me. Now, if you watch a trailer and you're like, that looks great, that looks absolutely hilarious, then I think that some people will enjoy it. Just doesn't really work for me. And like I said, I do like movies that maybe play on the genre, that aren't all-and-out parodies, or something like the Naked Gun films I absolutely adore as well, because, you know what? Leslie Nielsen, as ridiculous as he is, he's playing it straight. There needs to be, as for me to find comedy, and this is more of a hang-up of my own, somebody needs to be a straight man. Somebody needs to feel like they're in some sort of reality. And I don't know how to say this because sometimes when you have these outlandish movies or everybody acts really strange, like Killing of a Sacred Deer, it works really well, or Greasy Strangler works for me. But something like this just has that style of comedy that is just not funny to me, and it's a lot of dick and fart jokes without any well-landed jokes, or you know, it just doesn't work. I'm sorry, I feel bad about it. And this movie, along with the other movie that I'm going to talk about, share a lot of the same DNA. The character in a wheelchair, he's kind of, it feels very similar. And this one I think is a little bit better because the action, it's I don't want to say pace, but it has more going for it, a bigger plot, more extras. So it's just a bigger scale movie. There is some features on here that I'll talk about a little bit. There's a making of and a bunch of, there's commentary tracks, a VF, special effects breakdown and bloopers and everything like that. And I don't mind the special effects. I don't mind how the look of it. And the music's really great. Got to give it up for the music. I like the music. But again, this really, Lieutenant Jangles is not really something for me. But I can see why people like it. It's just, it's not very funny for me. But there's a couple characters I did enjoy. And it was the kind of backup cops. In these movies, you always have the main pair of cops, and then you have the secondary cops that they're always feuding with. If you think like Running Scared with Gregory Hines and Billy Crystal, they have the backup cops are bad boys. There's always like that second pair of cops who you like in the movie. They're very kind of always competing and everything. And those cops in here are kind of funny. So, like I said, some people really like this. It just doesn't do much for me. Sorry. Okay, this next one is Psyborgs. Yeah, that's right. Like Psychic Borgs. So yeah, this is also from Scream Team releasing, and this shares a lot of DNA with Lieutenant Jangles, which I just talked about. Less raunchy than Lieutenant Jangles and more style in the Power Rangers thing. So this was originally a short, I believe, that was made before that's on the disc, and I watched a short, and I actually enjoyed it a little bit more than the actual feature. I just felt it was straight more to the point, and it plays kind of like a prequel to this. So the Psyborgs is a group of superheroes, I guess I say, that have psychic powers that they use to fight evil. The main bad guy is kind of this renegade soldier, lieutenant, something Rainey, what is it, Slapdash? I think that's her name. They're kind of the main enemies here, and they're trying to have all sorts of things going on. They kidnap President Trudeau. It's a very Canadian movie, and basically it's up to the Psy-Corps to save him. Of course, you have a partner dying at the very beginning, which is part of the stereotypical thing in this. He's killed very unceremoniously in a very kind of unfunny way. And I found this one even less funny than the other one. And again, subjectivity here. There was a part, I guess, that I did find a little bit funny involving a shout out to the original short involving a bulletproof kind of goon, which I thought was cute. Wish they would have went more with that kind of stuff. But it feels very episodic, which is kind of what they're going for. They'll cut to every time they need a transition scene or they don't have a good way out of a scene, they'll just cut to their kind of like their logo that's obviously like the trailer cut around that's like and kind of that like the cut to commercial thing. It's a short movie. There's some like and it just kind of jumps all over the place and it skips over all the major moments. The acting, I mean, it's kind of in the style of that over-the-top acting as well, but I feel like it's lesser than Lieutenant Jangles. I feel like it's less funny, and it has a lot of the same DNA. Like I said, guy in a wheelchair, doing the same kind of stuff, flying, and it's not very good. I'm sorry, it's not very funny. I love Slapdash. She's a great character. She's very funny. She's the best part of the movie. A lot of the other stuff, I don't mind the special effects. I can get over that kind of digital effects. I think that they're kind of charming for this kind of thing. But this one, it just really doesn't land for me. And I'm very sorry. Again, I feel like a complete asshole for not liking these. These are the definitely kind of movies I don't care for. Like, didn't think Kung Fury was very good. I didn't like Dude Bro Party Massacre. I like the Astron 6 guys, and I feel like they're the only ones that can pull this kind of tone off very well and be funny. These kind of belong on the internet, like on YouTube for a kind of a joke or something like that. So I just really don't care for it, to be honest. It's just particularly not very funny to me, and this movie definitely relies on its comedy. I mean, that's the problem with a comedy, right? They're so subjective. Like, I can't tell you, if I don't find something funny, I can't enjoy it very much. I'm trying to be very objective here, and it just doesn't work for me at all. Like, I could see the shout-outs even to, like, stuff like Mortal Kombat, the end of Mortal Kombat. So there's a lot of little nice things in here at the end. That might have even been Lieutenant Jangle. This one's pretty much a shout-out. It's more of, like, a parody of, like, the Power Rangers or Mortal Kombat, that kind of style thing here, too. And I do think that the Stargate at the very end was kind of a nice little touch. I know somebody else pointed that out in a review, and I wouldn't disagree with that. I thought that the little twist was nice. Yeah, just again, not very funny. The short that was before this, that is like a precursor or prequel or whatever it is made before, is actually much better. I think it's better. I think it's more enjoyable. I think it's shorter. I think it's straight to the point. Just the comedy doesn't really work for me at all. And I hate to say that, but I really did enjoy Slapdash. I thought her character was good. I thought her acting was solid, and I enjoyed her kind of thing that she was doing. Very cool power and everything. But just a lot of the stuff just is not funny. Like, and sometimes they'll have these long scenes where we're cutting to people, like they'll just be laughing. And it's just like, we get it. Like, yes, we know that these old shows we used to enjoy are stupid. And being and like parodying it is just like, when something's already stupid enough, playing it straight is going to be funny enough. I mean, you don't need to parody something that's already dumb. We get that it's dumb. So when you're like parodying something that's already dumb, it just becomes double fucking dumb. And that's just too dumb for me. And I'm sorry, like a lot of people will enjoy this kind of stuff. Not for me. There's tons of features on here. 6 commentaries and making of, deleted extended scenes, the original short film. I think there's actually more shorts and trailers. So if you're interested in those, check them out. Like, watch the trailers. These are definitely something that you may watch a trailer and be like, I think that looks very funny. If you check it out and you like start laughing at the jokes, you'll really enjoy it. It just comes down to that comedy level. And these are not funny to me. They're not very good. So that's just how I got to put it. And I'm really sorry about that. Okay, the next one here is from Cult Epics. This is finishing out the trilogy by Von Brakel. And her first 2 films were the debut and A Woman Like Eve. And this one, I guess, was more under the impression that it's more of like a cult thriller film. And this is The Cool Lakes of Death. And man, this is dark. This is dark, depressing stuff. I don't even know how to go about it. It's a period piece. And right in the opening of the film, we have this woman kind of wandering to this old, like, lake. It looks beautiful. It looks very gothic. She's kind of just wandering around. And she looks around, and then it kind of goes to a flashback. And we have her kind of the same area as a young woman. And there's a big celebration. She falls ill, and she wakes up to find out that her mother has passed away from the same illness she suffers from. And she seems to have this religious connection. They kind of talk to her. And she seems very naive. She's from a very, well-off family. She seems naive, but she seems generally sweet and uncorrupted. As things go on, she has this kind of relationship, this small fling with this young artist. She obviously seems to like him. And we jump around big gaps of time. We see her get married in this unhappy marriage. We see it crumble. We see an affair. We see all these things happen in her life. Tragedy after tragedy. And there's points in the movie where I was actively disgusted with her. I was so upset with her but you see like this, she's just came from this like well-to-do family, and her unhappiness, but her nativity and her, you know, self-centeredness. But there's a couple parts in here where they do skip around, and when there's a break in her sanity, when it does skip around, I really was like, man, I need to see some of that. I need to understand how this worked, because there's no way in hell those servants let her do that without the maids and butlers let her do that without stopping. So they keep it very cloudy in a lot of ways, and it's just a really depressing movie. Like, I don't know how to go about it. Like, and then at the very end, I just don't want to run down the entire thing and spoil every little detail about the movie, but it's very hard to talk about without. The lead performance in here is fantastic. It stars the woman from Eve of Destruction and The Fourth Man. The Fourth Man's a really good movie, Paul Verhoeven movie. She stars in that. She stars in Eve of Destruction. She's in a handful of other things too. She was in this remake of Suspiria. It's a really tremendous performance, a wide kind of she gets to do a wide variety of things. She has all those, you know, she has like the regret, the insanity, the lust, and the love, and like in the beginning you're 100% you know, with her. Like you feel sorry for her, you kind of understand some things, but like it crosses that line when you genuinely realize that she's completely mentally ill. But from the acclaimed novel Frederick van Erden's The Cool Lakes of Death is the magnum opus from pioneering feminist filmmaker Nouchka van Brakel, a celebrated Dutch masterpiece. The Cool Lakes of Death is a historical melodrama featuring a stellar performance by Renee Sotojic, the fourth man, as Hedwig, a wealthy woman who falls victim to a loveless marriage and the loss of her lover and child that leads to mental illness, prostitution, and addiction. Before finding possible redemption, a box office smash upon its release in 1982, The Cool Lakes of Death remains one of the greatest Dutch drama films in history and was subsequently the Dutch entry for Best Foreign Language Film at the Academy Awards. Cult Epics presents Van Brakel's The Cool Lakes of Death for the first time on Blu-ray in a new high-definition 4K transfer. The movie looks great. It looks bigger budget than her previous two films. The cinematography's top-notch. The set design's great. Like I said, there's lots of beautiful shots around the lake. And it's one of these things that I think this would make a good double feature with Legend of the Holy Drinker with Rutger Hauer. Just kind of seeing these two people go about their lives and their past and everything like that. And this is an epic, man. It goes a long time span of her life. There's not many features on here, which kind of bummed me out because I would have liked to see some things behind the scenes. But there's a Polygon Journal newsreel. It's only a couple minutes long. That's kind of made at the time, and they talk about the movie a little bit here. But it's just kind of like one of these character study, like historical dramas with great acting and real disturbing stuff. It gets really dark. Lots of the stuff bothered me. Like I was actually actively upset during it, which it's not easy to do for me. But yeah, this is a good film. And I don't know if anybody's interested in this kind of thing, watch my channel. I try to cover a wide variety of movies, mostly horror and cult, but I try to squeeze in some other things in here. But this is definitely worth checking out for sure. And Cult Epics did a good job with these. And Cult Epics releases lots of interesting films. They kind of broaden your horizons because one hand they'll release a York Buckarett movie, and then they'll release Deathbed, then they'll release these kind of Dutch films. So yeah, it's a company you should give a chance and check out some of their catalog because they do a lot of cool different art films. Yeah, so that is The Cool Lakes of Death. Out of the trilogy, I think this is probably the best. The debut kind of shocked me the most, how it was handled, and then I would put this one, then the debut, and then A Woman Like Eve. But all three are interesting and worth checking out. This one I think is the most interesting, or at least the biggest, best made film of the three. But yeah, that's Cool Lakes of Death. I'm going to be a little bit more brief with some of these other titles because I'm covering them for summer series, so rewatching them, here we go. I covered this with Keith Voigt Jr., my friend, probably like 4 years back, and this is The Neon Demon. And this is by a Refn film, so you know what that means. It's going to look gorgeous, it's going to have lots of great lighting, it's going to be very arty, and it's going to be a Nicolas Refn movie. I don't even know how to explain that. But he did stuff like Drive and Only God Forgives, which I think are excellent movies. Love those a lot. So when The Neon Demon came out, I was pretty excited. I was like, oh, this is going to be great. And I do not know how to go about this too much. So basically we have this very young woman. We don't know much about her. It's a Fanning, Ellie Fanning, and she's going into the modeling career. And right in the beginning, who she meets? Christina Hendricks, who's in a bunch of stuff, gorgeous woman. She meets her for a job interview, right? And right off the bat, she says, right away, she says, "I don't think you're heavy. I think you're perfect, but somebody else might say it." So it's just like it's putting this pressure on her immediately, and it just kind of shows you the competition and the horrible nature of like the modeling community in general. So she's introduced to this photographer, or who she's kind of like a set helper or whatever, and she kind of takes her under the wing a little bit. But she definitely wants something from her. She meets two other models right in the beginning too, and it's great. The introduction between all three of them, they say basically, you ever notice how lipstick is named after sex or food? What would your lipstick name be? And they go through all these things, and right there, like you think beauty or food, and that kind of comes into the very end of this film. You'll notice that one of the guy she's kind of seeing is a photographer kind of guy. He's in stuff like Love from Gaspar Noé, and then you also notice Keanu Reeves is in this film. Kind of a really sleazy role. He's pretty gross. He says some real Lolita shit. It's got to be the line that I started laughing hysterically when I heard that, because it was so out of character for Keanu to say that kind of stuff, especially after watching like the John Wick movies, that he's so beloved in those. But yeah, it's a good performance by the lead. She seems like almost perfect for it, because she doesn't have like all that much personality, and she says this really gorgeous line, and it almost seems really kind of demonizing like beauty in a way, or in some way. It's filming all the beauty like gorgeously, but she says, "I couldn't do anything. I was never good at anything, but I was pretty." So, and like she gives this nice little speech. You kind of see exactly where she's coming from. But a lot of people would say, do you consider this a horror film? And towards the end of the movie, it definitely turns into a crazy horror film. You learn that the girl who initially kind of was looking out for her wanted something from her, and she was going to get it. And the other two models in this kind of cutthroat dog-eat-dog world were going to get something from her as well. And it just gets very dark. This is probably the most mainstream and beautifully shot film with a necrophiliac love scene I have ever seen. I couldn't believe I was seeing that again for the second time. I thought, geez, I completely forgot how graphic this was, and how well shot it was, and how mainstream this movie was for what is happening right now. So it kind of blew my mind. Anyways, it's a really great film. It's gorgeous to look at. It's a beautiful movie. It's basically telling you how low you gotta go and how dirty this whole Hollywood kind of thing is, from my understanding. It would make a very good double feature with Mulholland Drive, which I think is a better movie, of course, but I feel like they do share some DNA, of course. So yeah, that's The Neon Demon. This is a movie also where people could literally write books and break it down and do all these kind of things about it, but I only watched it a couple times, and I do like it. I just don't have the passion for it like a Romero film or something that I would want to do that with. But yeah, it's an interesting film for sure. Okay, I guess we're going to go with the Weekly Western here.
Let's go. Why not?
Fill your hand, you son of a bitch!
Say when.
Feel I'm knocking up on heaven's door. Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door.
Hey, Kitty, you bastard! It's you and I!
I don't deserve this.
And this one is Brimstone, which I've covered a while back before I was doing the Weekly Westerns. Yeah, this is in summer series, and I'm not gonna. I picked this one to put on there, and boy, Fanning back-to-back, Elle Fanning, and then we have Dakota Fanning starring in this one. You guys know I love Western movies. This is an epic movie broken into 4 parts, and really ingenious how it unfolds. So it's broken into these 4 chapters. It opens up in kind of, I guess, the time where you're like, this woman, she's a mute, and she's happily married. She lives in this kind of like this community, and she seems to be kind of like a semi-doctor or anything like that. Well, this Reverend comes in, played by Guy Pearce, and he looks very messed up. He's scarred up, and she obviously has some trouble upset recognizing him. That night he attacks her family, and some horrible things happen, and they have to leave. But we have another chapter open up right at that spot at the end of kind of like a tragic death. Each chapter seems to end with the death of someone that's very close to Dakota Fanning in this movie. So after that, we kind of go back to more time. We rewind a little bit, and we see her as this kind of this prostitute in this town serving here, and we get this whole elaborate story, who she is and what she's been through and all that stuff. And there's another run-in with Guy Pearce, and it's in the past, and we learn as it progresses who Guy Pearce is and who she is, and it's really great reveal their connection, and it becomes different every chapter it ends. It changes how you see them, it changes the story, and it makes the stakes higher and higher as it goes on. And then finally we get the conclusion of the movie. Without spoiling too much, this is a very bleak, very brutal Western film, and it has a horror tinge, kind of in the vein of a High Plains Drifter horror tinge, but I would say more so. I would say that there is definitely a demonic presence here. And like the bleak stuff involving a pig that is killed and the tragedy that happens here. This movie doesn't pull its punches. It's really dark. It's really depressing. And I don't think this movie got the recognition it really deserved. Like, people would bring it up and that I heard in like podcasts, but like as far as mainstream recognition, I didn't really hear anyone talk about it. And the performances by Fanning are great. Guy Pearce is really creepy and really awful in this movie. Fucking disgusting. I just think this is a top-notch film. I think it's bleak and brutal, dark Western horror thriller, and I think it's special. It also has some gorgeous cinematography, wide shots, shot during winter scenes, shot during beautiful kind of landscapes with like trees and water. And deserts. It kind of is like whoever made this had a love for, you know, the wide lens, or basically just landscapes and Western films. And it's shot well. Like, I'm saying I don't want to watch a shitty indoor shot Western. I'm sorry. Like, you need to have a good landscape. You need to have horses. You need to have certain things for a Western film, or you need to, you know, and this stuff has it. It has a lot of those things, and it has the brutality and stuff. Yeah, I really enjoy this. I think it's a top-notch movie. Yeah. It's got a bunch of people in here. It's just kind of like brutal and depressing, and there's lots of reveals that you really don't see. So, a triumphant thriller set in the menacing inferno of the old American West. Brimstone tells the story of Liz, a genuine survivor who is hunted by a vengeful preacher for a crime she didn't commit. And that's just grazing the surface of it, because there's so many reveals, and it gets darker and more twisted. And like I said, you know, the stakes are one thing, and then they're another, and then they're, oh man, this has got to end. Anyways, Brimstone. Great movie, great movie.
Deserves got nothing to do with it.
When you have to shoot, shoot, don't talk.
Okay, so I covered this one when it came out too, and I remember liking it just fine, but this is raw. So rewatching it, the first thing I noticed about this bad boy was how freaking amazing the score was. I didn't register how good it was last time. The score actually reminded me of something along the lines of the score used in Tentacles, but just a little bit different, less, I guess, I don't know the word. Tentacles is more in your face. This is a little bit more subdued than that, even though it's very powerful. And the score from Tentacles was used about in 10 million different movies. So, but it reminds me a little bit of Tentacles, like that kind of a Euro horror kind of style score, which is kind of like. And I really liked it. I thought it was a great score. So what we have here is this young girl going to veterinarian school. She's really good at her job. Her parents were both veterinarians. Her sister's a veterinarian, and she's going to go to this kind of good veterinarian school. When she gets there, she basically is, you know, it's a coming of age story, and everybody in the family is a vegetarian, strict vegetarians for a good reason, and she is fed this meat during a ceremony, a hazing ceremony. She eats it, and that kind of triggers something in her. She has an allergic reaction, but that's not all she has. She has kind of an awakening, if you will, and she learns that her sister had the same awakening, and they have this relationship. Her roommate is this young man who's a homosexual. They start like a kind of friendship that's very complicated and everything like that. And like I said, as much as a coming of age story, it is a horror film as well. It's a body horror film, but more so, it's a cannibal film. It's about, you know, eating flesh. There's some really cool moments in here how her and her sister kind of fetch their food, which I thought was really well done. There's some really cringy stuff in here, like almost darkly comedic but very vomit inducing, involving a finger and a dog and a Brazilian wax. Anyways, I just, again, can't break this down as well as I should, and I already talked about it a bit. I really like the film. I felt that it landed a lot better on the second viewing, to be honest, and I know that a lot of Dave Z, who has Exploding Heads podcast, always swears by the second viewing. I watch a lot of old movies dozens and dozens of times that I adore. A lot of the newer ones I don't ever have the chance to watch a second time, so rewatching some of these a second, third time, you know, like that, they hit a little bit harder. It's like Super Dark Times or It or Raw. They all hit harder than they did the first time, and I really enjoyed them. So, yeah, I thought this one was pretty damn great, actually. I thought the acting was top-notch. I love the lead in here. She's fantastic. She's got a great look. And I liked the interactions between her and her sister. And the reveal. The reveal felt better this time around because it set it up a little bit more why everybody was a veterinarian, why everybody was a vegetarian. So, anyways, Raw. Great stuff. Very good movie. Check it out if you haven't. I'm pretty sure most people have. Okay, this next one is a Shudder exclusive, and this is one from Argentina, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe it is Spanish, but this is Terrified. This one and Satan's Slaves I saw around the same time, so I always kind of throw them together in my head as like a double feature, because they're both kind of supernatural horror films. But Terrified, about an hour and 30-minute ghost story, which I love seeing, an hour and 27 minutes. And this is some really spooky movie. This is genuine scares here. There's lots of cool, effective stuff going on. So, again, the structure story here is different and unique. We have, I think does it open up in the interrogation room, or does it open up right away? I think it opens in the interrogation room where they're questioning this guy right away. And right in the beginning of the film, there is a horrible murder, not a murder, but a death of his wife who is floating and hitting the ceiling. He comes home from work. She tells him that something was talking to her in the sink. He says, okay, and then he ends up going to sleep. She ends up taking a shower, but she's killed in the shower in a very mysterious supernatural way. Obviously, he is number one suspect, and they start to go over it, and there are three paranormal people, so there's something strange going on, right? And he starts to break down everything that happened, and we learn that the next door neighbor was suffering from some supernatural things as well. So we kind of jump into his story a little bit, and then we kind of go follow these three paranormal investigators on this entire neighborhood and a police officer who's kind of like on his last kind of couple years, maybe a couple months of duty. So all these people are kind of looking around the neighborhood trying to figure out what's going on, and there's something haunting this neighborhood, and it's very creepy and very weird, and there's some genuinely creepy scares in here. When you start to mix the science in with the supernatural stuff, things get really weird and distorted. So you'll have one character in a house and saying, "Who are you in the window?" And he'll be like, "I'm not by the window." And then he'll like look at it through one window pane, and he'll move over to the side and look at it through another window pane, and there's somebody there, but when he goes back, they're gone. So it's like this weird dip in like the way you see reflections or light or something that you can see the spirits in. And it's just like a weird dimensional rip, and it just creeps me the hell out, okay? Like creepy thing under your bed that you can only see in a certain angle. It's just like, oh no, I don't like this. This is not pleasant. This is not doing it for me. This is freaking me out. And also it's dark. Like people die that you don't expect to die, and people die in horrible ways. There's a couple genuine scares here. The cop having that heart problem that he has makes it really kind of unsettling and makes you feel very helpless. It makes you very helpless in here. I like all the characters, and I would obviously, it would be criminal if I didn't mention the young boy scare, wandering to the kitchen table to sit down for breakfast and pouring his cereal after he had been buried. Like, that's the stuff of nightmares. It truly is, and there's lots of scary stuff in here. There's lots of good jump scares. A very effective, freaking scary movie. Like, and you guys know me with the supernatural hauntings and stuff. I feel like the foreign ones just go there. They do things that the American audiences probably wouldn't like, or they'd be really disgusted accosted by, they kind of scare me here, and they have some kind of mythology or maybe superstition that a lot of things don't have. So it's just seeing it from a different point of view that makes it a little bit more genuinely scary, and they're doing things that are a little bit different. I feel like a lot of the American stuff follow into the same typical possession haunted house stories, and this doesn't feel like that. They're kind of adding in this element of this weird kind of theories about the hauntings and supernatural elements, like seeing a crack in the wall and seeing certain angles, like somebody in there, and it's unpleasant as shit. It also has like a genuine like violence and scares and death and everything. So Terrified, really worth your time, a really great film. Okay, so yeah, I definitely rewatched it. What can I say? When I have a history with the original It, the 1990 miniseries. I was very young when I saw that film, and right from the very opening with the music, with the mother who always played it on the piano, the classic music, I can't remember the song, but it always just hit a soft spot with me. Stephen King. My mom loved Stephen King, and I was a young kid riding bikes. Like I said, bike horror, bike. It's like a whole subgenre, right? But me and my friends, I could kind of relate to the Losers Club. Okay, like it felt like a lot of my friends were from different walks of life, and they had different things about them. So I feel like Stephen King was very good at writing that. So a lot of friends could, or a lot of people could relate to that, if that makes any sense. So I know that it's not personal just to me or my story. It's probably a very broad spectrum, but it somehow captures childhood. The story of It, the original 90 miniseries. I think the first half is perfection. The second half is a little lackluster. All in all, together, makes a good movie. Tim Curry, irreplaceable. So when the 2017 It came out, I saw the trailer and I was like, well, that's probably going to be pretty good, actually. It looked like it was just a bigger version of that movie. I knew there would be some things I didn't like, some things I liked better. But I remember enjoying the film. I saw it in theaters, walked away very happy with it. Saw the sequel, It Chapter 2. Enjoyed that as well. Not as much as the first one, but still liked it. So when I put this in for a rewatch, when it started, I really dug the thing. I actually got to finally watch it. Not every 4K has Dolby Atmos, but this one did. I had to turn it on. I had to change it. It starts off with like the DTS, but when I turned the Dolby Atmos, it came through beautifully. Great sound design. Also, immaculate picture for a 4K. A lot of the 4Ks you put in, they look good. Like the Blue Underground, it looks great. It looks fantastic. And those are some of the best. I shouldn't have used that. But like some of them, like you put in and you're just like, eh. This one looked fantastic. It looked great. Like Blue Undergrounds are some of the best too, but this one looked freaking fantastic too. I was very happy with it. And the sound and picture was made for that kind of thing now. The Dolby sounded great. So it wasn't very hard to get into the movie. Like I said, I don't really know how to break apart this movie very much, as I've already talked about it. I feel like I'm probably repeating myself a lot. But on rewatch, the things I did enjoy were just like the group of kids. I always enjoyed them. I thought they were all great. I only have one or two hits on the movie in general. I did miss the subplot with Ben, Mike. It's Ben and his dad, because Ben not having a dad was the thing in the original movie. I had a dad growing up, but that part in the movie, it really always connected with me when he sees Ben. Hey, Ben, it's me. And he waves to him. I thought that was generally one of the creepiest part in the whole movie, because it had the way he walks down to the creek, and it just felt real to me. Like, I can understand a kid doing that and everything. And taking away that part about Ben was something that kind of upset me. Everything else I enjoyed about the movie. There's not really any complaints about it. I thought the casting was really well done. The guy who plays Eddie is fantastic. Richie is great. Ben is great. Just even Bill, Beverly, Mike. I like all the casting in the movie. I like all the characters. Henry Bowers is a real creep. And I did watch the special features on here, some deleted scenes. And there was a great deleted scene, which I wish they would have kept in, when you see what happens to Belch and the other bully. I also like they added in Huckstutter, one of the other kids from the book, who's not in the... He's not in the, what is he? He's in the old miniseries, but he's not a real character. This one, he has a little bit more character. The kills are fairly brutal. I like that. I listened to last podcast a little bit today. They're talking about the gremlin kind of theory, and the idea that the gremlin wears a mask, and whoever sees it sees something different what they want to see. And that's kind of like It too, right? With the fear. And I remember hearing the Quentin Tarantino saying it is basically just Nightmare on Elm Street with cake frosting. And he's not wrong. He's not wrong. But the idea that it preys on your fears and it can become what you're afraid of. I kind of like that. I mean, that's kind of a great concept. Freddy does the same thing, but it's a little bit different. And the only complaint about the movie that is not just a character background thing that they changed is every time it is a monster, like he'll be the leper or he'll be like Georgie or something, and then he'll like wander away in the pipes. He'll come back out and be like, yeah, it's me, it again, Pennywise. And like they have to make sure they show people that it's Pennywise. People will be like, was that really a leper? Like, no, we know it's it. Every time you see a freaking monster, it's it, okay? Like he doesn't need to pop out and be scary again. Like I know people love the clown, and there's some genuinely creepy stuff, like him holding a little arm waving is like comedically nasty and stuff like that. But like when he keeps popping back like, yeah, it's me, yeah, I'm like, we get it, we know you're Pennywise, we knew you were Pennywise when there was a monster. I mean, we know, but you could change form. We saw that in the beginning. You don't need to keep hitting us over the head with it. But yeah, it's just an enjoyable movie, and I like the end with the Stan speech. It's heartwarming, and it just, there's something about these movies, man, that is almost impossible to like capture that nostalgia you had as a kid. Like at the end of the line in Stand By Me, another Stephen King, was says, does anybody have friends like they did when they were kids? No, or something like that. That whole line, that whole little like narration in there, it just like tears, it cuts you like a knife. And when I see like movies like It, with the kids hanging out and everything, it's just something about Stephen King recreating childhood that can cut me like a knife. And this one does it too. I like, you miss your friends, you miss the time you spent with them. I'm a nostalgist. I know I am. I think about the old times in the past and reminiscing and stuff like that. And I'm always chasing that feeling. You know, look, I'm chasing feelings. Look at this whole movie store in my room. So this kind of stuff works for me, all right? I know it's not going to be for everybody. It's not perfect. And watching it, to compare Bill Skarsgård to Tim Curry, they're different. They're both very good. But I got to give the edge to Tim Curry. And I will say probably because he has less CGI on him. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Bill Skarsgård doesn't have as much CGI. But Tim Curry feels like more practical in every aspect. And Tim Curry's just scary as shit, guys. What can I say? And his voice. I like his voice better. And then he looks more like a clown. He looks more like a typical clown to me. Well, Bill Skarsgård changes form and everything. He just always looks scary. I remember my cousin when he saw the trailer. He made a comment. He said, no one's going to go up to that clown. No one's going to go up to Bill Skarsgård. He looks too scary. Like Pennywise in the old It, he looks somewhat friendly. But nowadays, I don't think anybody would go up to a clown. As a kid, hell no. Nobody's going up to a clown. Maybe partially because of It, or John Wayne Gacy, or lots of scary killer clowns from outer space. It's just like, but at that point, he made a good point. At that time, he made a good point. I don't want to say point. But I understand. Anyways, I still really like the movie. I think it's a big blockbuster too. Very rarely is a movie a huge blockbuster and somehow has like a small connective tissue to me as well. I don't know how to explain it. If I love a movie and it's really popular, it just like, it makes me feel good in some ways, because like, you don't ever want to be that guy that's like, it's popular and I hate it because it's popular. You're like, thank you. I'm not, I do like movies that other people like sometimes. Anyways, really like it. Chapter 1. All right, so this one I watched for the summer series, and it is Super Dark Times. I had actually covered this one, I think, a couple of years back, and I was a fan of it. I just did not remember how much I liked it, so I put it in. You watched it this time.
Yeah.
And, yeah, it's one of these kind of adolescent kind of horror thriller movies, and it takes place at a distinct time. And I feel like if you weren't born or you didn't grow up in the late 90s, early 2000s, this movie, you might lose a little bit. And I don't know. I just know that I grew up during that time, so I had a direct connection with it. Felt very authentic. So what we have here is a pair of friends. They're hanging out with a couple other friends one day, and they kind of are screwing around, and something really tragic happens, and they decide to cover it up. And it kind of, one of the kids kind of snaps, and we have kind of almost like a mystery going on, and paranoia and self-destruction and coming-of-age stuff all happening at the same time. Kind of like a first love, but it has all this other thing. It takes place during the winter. It's got a great look. It's got your quintessential kids riding on bikes. I mean, that's the thing that people love. Like, I remember riding a bike. It happens in summer of '84. It happens in fucking It. I mean, kids riding on bikes should be its own subgenre, right? I think it is. It is. It's like, yeah. So Goonies, Monster, kids riding on fucking bikes. That's what they should just call this the subgenre. So, anyways, why's your phone on?
That's yours.
No, it's not. Anyways, So basically what happens, I said, is we have this tragedy and it follows the main character here. So like I said, I talked about this movie before, but what I really want to talk about is how authentic it feels. Like in the first opening of this movie, the kids interacting when they go in the brother's basement and he's like, take your shoes off. Don't touch that. Don't touch that. And they have this one obnoxious friend who everybody kind of had, who didn't have a filter, who was just a little over the top. And it was like, oh, I've done that a million times. Like my friends are in my house when they're not supposed to be and they're fucking with shit. And you're like, dude, stop fucking touching it. You like get all wigged out on it. Just ask any of my friends. Like literally this happened all the fucking time. All the dialogue and everything like that. So the acting's top notch. I love the lead in it. I think he's really interesting.
Yes,
and this one, I think some people could consider maybe not a horror film, but I think that it has a sense of dread and the nightmares and stuff would push it a little bit over the top to be more of a horror-oriented film. Some of the scenes of violence and stuff too.
Yeah, I mean, it gets pretty violent in some points.
And the nightmares and stuff and the horror within them.
Like would you consider Heathers a horror film?
No.
You wouldn't?
You just shoehorn Heathers in every time. You're like Heathers
is like Heathers movie.
It's like your Night of the Living Dead or Dawn of the Dead for you. You just got to shoehorn it in everything like I do.
But no, this is a Heathers movie.
Well, I mean, it has the high school mentality, right? But Heathers is a dark comedy. I mean, the tone is not horror oriented. I mean, it's more of a comedy. This one has like a dark tone, although it has the moments of comedy in the beginning. Like I said, if you can make people laugh, like it's not a comedy, but the characters that people are saying is funny because it seems like real and they're arguing and shit. And that stuff can be very funny. Almost every movie has bits of comedy within the dialogue.
When it's all four kids together, reminds me of South Park.
Yeah, it does kind of. But the one problem with the movie for me is with the four characters in the beginning, when something happens to one of them, I was kind of like, well, fuck. I mean, that character was almost like a major catalyst to everything that happened, all the good dialogue happening with him. Right. And he was also a really good actor, so when him out of the picture, it's a little less entertaining.
It's almost like Heather Chandler and Heathers.
Stop it.
Like, it was just completely by accident out of nowhere. But, she kind of carried the movie for him. And then just without her happening.
Stop bringing up Heathers. We get the joke. Shoehorning a joke there now, too. But, like I said, I just don't know how much more to talk about this one. But it also ends on a good note, too. It doesn't end, like, in the super obvious way. That's your phone on you. Turn it off. Just turn it off. It doesn't end in a super obvious way, typically, like a lot of other movies. And at the very end, they decide to show you the outcome of someone else's life instead of, the person, like a victim more so than the main character, which is also kind of refreshing because you really have a lot of question marks. And people are like, well, I need closure. It's like, well, in real life, you don't get closure. When I was younger, I always felt that you needed closure. Like every little character had to have his outcome. As I get older, I'm like, well, you don't ever really know. And I just adds a sense of realism to the whole story. Mm-hmm. Do you too? I mean, do you buy that the kid snapped like that? Do you think that kind of stress could cause something? Or do you think there's obviously something there before that was off?
I mean, I would say that there might be something there before that's off.
It's what do they call that? Inciting incident.
Yeah.
It was what caused it, but it was already lingering, probably.
Like, maybe he was already mental. There was, like, the weird love rivalry that, like, they kind of had before anything ever happened when they were going through the yearbook.
Penis! When they scream penis outside. Mm-hmm. That was really funny, too. Because I remember doing stuff like that. I remember literally we had this thing called the Pop Bombers, where we probably shouldn't go through this, where me and my friend went around and all the kids that he didn't like from his old school, we would dump pop on them if we saw them.
So weird.
We only dumped pop on one kid, and then we'd dump pop all over their yard if they weren't there. We were like 10. I did beat up one of them. I was a violent kid, okay? We used to fight a lot, all right? When we were kids, we used to fight a lot.
Quit shoehorning your childhood nostalgia.
Well, this movie is childhood nostalgia. This movie is all about childhood nostalgia. And, like, as immature as the dialogue is, it feels legitimate. It's the stuff they say. Like, the fat kid is too genuine. Like, he's so obnoxious, but he seems legit real. He's like, I love hot pockets. He just runs into your fridge, starts eating your shit. You're like, God damn it. I always had a friend like that, like a new friend who'd come over, and he'd always be uneasy. You know what I mean? Like, and you have that moment where, like, the people interact that aren't typically interacting, and you're on, like, kind of eggshells because you don't not know what's going to happen.
Well, that's what it seems like. It was like he was like the main characters are like good friends, but
he has an old friend.
Ever like at a different school. Well, actually, they went all into the same.
Yeah,
school.
but he, I think recently, like his mom got divorced or
Yeah,
dad died or
something.
something, and he ended up,
Yeah.
they were poor, and he said it's not his fault they're poor now. It is.
Right.
There's definitely that too. But I don't know, the main character, I like the nightmares he has are pretty horrifying, and like I said, it's a great way to have like a horror film is have the coming of age. You at one point said that you really wish it wasn't a horror film because you were enjoying just
Right.
watching the characters. It has that slice of life quality too, like the weird kind of teen films like a Chum Scrubber a little bit, but that one's a little bit more nonsense, crazy,
like
right?
Chum Scrubber, Heathers.
Thumbsucker.
I'm sorry, Heathers is like the proto,
No, Massacre at Central High is
I
the
ain't
proto
never
Heathers.
seen Massacre at Central High, but I think Heathers does a better job.
You haven't even seen the movie, and it's different. Massacre at Central High is more of an exploitation horror film, while Heathers is more of a dark comedy.
Right.
But
Coming of age story.
they basically take from the same cloth, and Carrie is before Heathers as well, and
Carrie's different.
Carrie is much more high school horror. I mean, Carrie's one of the. I think Carrie and Massacre at Central High came out the same year, '76. So.
But they don't really show Carrie at high school at all.
And I guess if you wanted to go back further, you'd have to go back to those '50s schoolgirl delinquent movies.
So like Grease.
Not even Grease. Grease isn't that. But those movies like those schoolgirl delinquent movies and stuff like that. I think Ed Wood made one of those. So you'd even go back further than that if you want to start
Linda
getting high
Blair
school.
when she's a knife fighter?
That's Switchblade Sisters. I think that might be 76, 74 actually. So, I mean, that could possibly be there too. Linda Blair's not in Switchblade Sisters, by the way.
Well, you knew the movie I was talking about.
But anyways, so I really like Super Dark Times. Very fond of it. It's one of my favorites of 2017, believe it or not. And I watched this with It. So it was really fun to watch It. Like you see the younger kids riding bikes, and it has a really nice nostalgia for me, the 1990 movie, and this one kind of captures that nostalgia as well because obviously you watch that kind of thing, it reminds me of you and your friends and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I love Super Dark Times. Did you like it?
Oh, it's fantastic. And like I said, I grew up and came to age in the 90s, so it's like I was the age that these characters are in the time that it's happening,
I love the look too.
Like 1997, I was in 7th grade. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Are these kids like high schoolers? Are they? Yeah, he's a freshman.
He's a freshman,
Yeah.
and I was a freshman in '99. I think was the year
2001 for me.
I would have entered. Yeah, so I mean, he's playing a PS1 with Twisted Metal, I think, but he doesn't outright say it because I think it's the copyright issues. But no, it was fantastic. I'd probably give it like a 4 out of 5.
I'm a little higher than that, but I don't want to spoil anything too much because of the summer series.
Oh yeah. So you can't talk about the movie. So it's weird. Like, who would think that a sequel of Heathers would be
Shut
this
up.
off
Anyway,
the
stop.
chain?
Off the chain. What are you fucking
Yeah,
bringing
whatever
back
you're
now?
talking about.
Yeah, anyways, I think it's a great movie. I also like the look of it. It's a movie that takes place in winter, but it's not devoid of all colors. It feels like they took away like the colors a little bit, but it didn't feel like this droned out blue piece of shit, which so many movies do. It's like, yeah, it takes place in the winter, so we just drained all color of everything, and this does not even look like real life anymore. And like this one feels like real life. I think it has good atmosphere, and it feels legit. What are you doing? Our cats are miserable. I'm good on this one. You too?
All right, bye.
Okay, for the 1970 movie this week, I will be checking out The Dunwich Horror. That's right. This stars Dean Stockwell and Ed Begley. And not Ed Begley Jr., this is Ed Begley Sr. from Against All Odds and a bunch of other movies. So, The Dunwich Horror is an H.P. Lovecraft story. And is this not the... Die Monster Die, I think, is the earliest rendition of Lovecraft, or The Haunted Palace caught on movies or whatever like that. I'm sure there's earlier ones, but I think those might be the earliest too. Dunwich Horror is pretty early on. So this story has kind of been done a couple times. What was the other movies I was thinking of? Geez, there was, I can't think. Oh, wow. City of the Living Dead was one. And there was a movie that I watched recently that was basically a take on the Dunwich Horror that actually wasn't that accurate to it either. But it had some similarity to it. Oh, it was The Haunted Palace. Had some similarity to the Dunwich Horror. So honestly, this is the closest to the Dunwich Horror. Although it's not completely accurate as well. It does have Dean Stockwell as one of the Whateleys, and he comes looking for the Necronomicon. It's basically at this old museum, or this book museum or whatever, and Ed Begley doesn't want him to take it out. This young woman that has kind of an infatuation with him ends up, I think, letting him take it out, or he steals it. He steals it, sorry. Kind of like she ends up going back with him to his house, and there's an old grandfather there that warns him. If anybody doesn't know the story of the Dunwich Horror, it's kind of about a weird hereditary thing going on where this family wants the Necronomicon so they can bring back the old ones. And let me read the back, because I try to read the backs here because I don't want to spoil too much, and I'm like, how far do I go? So, from the city of lights and frights, our tour of terror moves on to a small New England town in the 1970s Dunwich Horror. When a beautiful student named Nancy catches the eye of weird Wilbur Whately, it's up to her professor, the good doctor and occult expert, Dr. Harry Armitage, to warn her that no good will come of it. But as Armitage digs deeper into the Whately family history, he uncovers a buried secret and plot intended to call forth an evil beyond imagination. A cult favorite that proves the old ones are good ones. The Dunwich Horror stars Dean Stockwell, Ed Begley, and Sandra Dee. So, the things I really liked about this movie are that it gets super trippy and weird, especially with the soundtrack, that I was like, oh shit, this feels very carryover from the 60s here. Dean Stockwell is really good. The stuff I didn't like is that they betrayed the book, was Dean Stockwell wasn't deformed. In the book, he's deformed because you realize that he is an ancestor of something. So they kind of tied in a love story here, an infatuation with this young student Nancy has with him, which I was like, eh. But besides that, I think it does have some really cool things here. Instead of the character, without spoiling too much, being invisible, we do actually, he is kind of in a weird situation here. Anyways, I did enjoy the movie. I thought it was creepy. I thought it was closer to Dunwich Horror than one might expect. And now I kind of have to spoil a little bit if anybody hasn't seen this movie, because honestly, I want to kind of talk a little bit about how the monster's portrayed in here. In the original book, the idea is absolutely batshit insane that the grandfather tried to raise the old ones who came through was basically some sort of creature that mated with his daughter, and his daughter ended up giving birth to two monsters. So one was Dean Stockwell in this movie, and one was a character that they keep locked up that no one can see. In the book, he's completely invisible. I don't think you could see him maybe under certain conditions you possibly can see him. But in this one, you do end up seeing him at a certain point. You get a lot of point of view where he destroys stuff and everything like that. But at the very end, you get a glimpse at him, and he looks batshit crazy. It's like a circular thing. I think there's like snakes coming off. I don't know what the hell's going on in there, but it looked really weird and cool. Yeah, this one is enjoyable, and it feels very Lovecraft. And to see that kind of old take on Lovecraft was a little bit different. Like usually, you know, it's so weird to me. I love Stuart Gordon's movies, but everybody compares Lovecraft to Gordon, and I'm like, and I know people are like, Lovecraft's hard to do, and I'm like, yeah, he is hard to do. But as I watch a lot more of these, I think that a lot of the older films were a little more accurate in it, if that makes any sense. I think From Beyond is more accurate if they had sexual stuff in there, but I think that Dunwich Horror has a little bit more to it, and I think Fulci has a lot in there too, like City of the Living Dead, which is a take on Dunwich, kind of. It takes place in Dunwich, and it just has an unspeakable evil coming back and attacking superstitious people, which is here too. Like, and they do have some of the same stuff in the book, like him coming and stealing the book, and they do change some things to make it a little easier on their plot devices and rely on some of the typical love story aspects. Anyways, I thought this was a good movie. Not the best thing from 1970 at all, but enjoyable and different. And this with Equinox from 1970 were kind of interesting because we're kind of hitting those Lovecraft things, right? So I think Equinox and this are kind of early kind of things that inspired, from Lovecraft, so that's kind of cool. Okay, now we're going to hit the Patreon pick, and this is from Lorna, and she picked Vampire Junction from 2001, and this is a Jess Franco film. Yeah! So I gotta say some props to Jess Franco before I talk about Vampire Junction. Jess Franco was a director that was going to direct movies until he died, and he pretty much did. He went through like 2 wives that died while making movies. Lena Romay was in this one as well. She was like 46 years old making this, and this is like dirt cheap. I believe it's SOV, right? It has to be SOV. But it's professional SOV, as professional as you can get. It feels like it's shot in an old west town on a shoestring budget, and it barely qualifies as a movie. But the reasons I love Jess Franco is he was going to make a movie if he had $2 or $2 million, and he was going to finish it no matter what. That's what we have going on here. So it feels like this reporter is coming to this small town, which has been overtaken by vampires. And the 2 main vampires are these 2 lesbian vampires that the movie stops completely for to have them basically one perform like a shaving of the genital region and then do some 69 where we basically just freeze on the shaved vagina and the open butt. Very rarely do you see open butthole in a movie that's not a porn film. So if like this was on HBO in like 2000, I would be very, very happy. But watching this as a 34-year-old man, I'm just like, okay, I get it. I'm just saying like these two supposedly lesbian vampires have oral sex in one shot, and it just becomes tedious as hell. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not sure this qualifies as a movie. It doesn't feel like a lot of his earlier stuff, and we know Franco worked with what he had. But even when you look at his early stuff like Venus and Furs and She Killed in Ecstasy, like these are really cool movies, Euro horror films. And even later, or even in the mid when he was doing like the Fu Manchu movies, which I don't like, they still are real films. This is just kind of sad, like, to see Franco make this movie, like, and it's just, the dialogue's not great, the acting's pretty miserable. Some people feel like they might be speaking English on set, most of them probably are ADR'd, but it's just absolutely ridiculous. It's not gratuitously, like, gory or anything, but it's sexually explicit. There's lots of nudity and everything, and that's kind of the driving force, like, but besides that, I'm just like, this is almost like a trippy thing that I don't know what the hell's going on. The opening credits are very strange and very, like, acid-induced. I just don't have much to say about it, except that this feels much more like a softcore film with very little variety and sex and everything like that, and less like a movie. If you want to see girls with yellow cheap fangs, like literally like that, sometimes you see them falling out of their mouths, like kind of look at the camera and hiss and be nude and have oral sex with each other, then I'll go for it. But besides that, there's not really anything. This is the worst Jess Franco movie I've ever seen. This is the worst movie I've seen in a very, very long time. And I'm very sorry, because I appreciate Jess Franco's eagerness to make a movie and his dedication to film. But this is not a film or a movie. It's just not really anything. It's just kind of like when you watch like the Tinto Brass movies later on in his career, it's just like he's been overtaken by just putting butts on the screen. And it's almost like Franco's been overtaken with just finishing the movie at all costs, even if it takes putting 25 minutes of just softcore porn in it. I know he's done pornos before and everything, but without anything else happening. I know he stands on the camera for way too long a lot of times in other movies too, but this is also just it's shot like shit because it's such low budget and there's nothing really there, and it's just not much of a story. Like his narration and everything like that. Some people may say it's kind of like Dracula, but it's just not. I can't really talk about it very much. There's not much to say. I'm sorry I did not like this. I did not want to talk about this. I do not have anything to say. It was part of the Sub Rosa line where they released like a handful of Franco's latter-day films that are all dirt cheap and all like SOV and all just like the last days of Franco making movies, even though he went on to make movies for like another 10 years before he literally died. He made a bunch of comedies and stuff in like 2013 and everything. I just have nothing else to say about this movie. I'm very sorry. It's just not really a movie. Vampire Junction.
What? What is this?
Zombie Bloodbath 2, Rage of the Undead.
Oh.
What? You ain't seen Zombie Bloodbath 2, Rage of the Undead?
Nah, I guess I must have missed that one.
You ain't seen nothing.
You ain't seen nothing.
I seen way more than you.
Mm-hmm.
You haven't seen Taxi Driver, Goodfellas, Casino, Cannibal Holocaust, The Beginning, The Great Escape, Kelly's Heroes, Once Upon a Time in the fucking West.
You haven't seen War and Peace, Pink Flamingos, Casablanca, Gone with the Wind, Citizen Kane, The Alvin and the Chipmunks Christmas Special.
You haven't seen, what else haven't you seen? The Magnificent Seven? The Magnificent Seven Ride Again? The Magnificent Seven Are Back? Is that a movie? And last of all, you ain't seen Zombie Bloodbath 2, Rage of the Undead.
And you haven't seen War and Peace.
I ain't watching War and Peace.
The hell you are.
Fuck War and Peace! Alright, we're here for Blind Spot. This was my pick for Jeremy. And this was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2.
This was a mistake.
I've been seeing a lot of people cover this movie, and the thing about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2 is the damn thing just grows on you. You first see it, and it's just a fever dream of weirdness that doesn't really make any sense. And then longer and longer you hear about it, you know, the context that Tobe Hooper thought the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre was a comedy. And then you're like, this guy is fucking insane. And then you see Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2 and you realize he's making this a comedy. He is insane. So he basically was hired by Cannon Films to make a bunch of films, 3 films, 3-picture deal. Cannon Films is infamously crazy film company that produced so many awesome movies and weird movies. I would say Cannon and Dino De Laurentiis are responsible for the 80s being like this coke-fueled insanity that it was, a lot of the films. So, okay. They hired him to do a 3-picture deal, and they wanted one of them to be the Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 3. The other 2 were Life Force, which pretty much almost bankrupt Cannon Films, was one of the films that kind of flopped, almost screwed them up. And I think Invaders from Mars was another one. So we have 3. I enjoy all 3, but I must admit that the Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2 is Tobe Hooper's best film of the Cannon trio. This is a bizarre story.
Wait.
What are you saying?
You said that he had to make Part 3 too?
No, he did 3-picture deal for Cannon.
Oh, you said...
And they wanted one of them to be Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
You said Part 3.
Yeah. So this is
So you meant to say Part 2.
Yeah, he did 3 films, and this was I think this was actually the second or third in the deal. So, but he had to do Texas Chainsaw Part 2 as one of the 3. That's kind of the deal. Kind of like when Romero did the deal with Rubenstein, and he basically had to make a dead film in there and stuff like that, but he got to make a couple of his own.
Is Invaders from Mars just on a Louis Fletcher?
Louise Fletcher. Yeah, and that's a remake. And
That's
Life Force.
That's one we should have watched.
Stop. You've seen that one, though.
I know.
So, okay, this cat never wants to pay attention to me. And then all of a sudden, she just, right when we're talking, she's got to be over here. This is Suzu, by the way. This is the meanest cat. It's the only female. Go figure, right? Just kidding. 1970. I'm like a 70-year-old man joke. So anyways, all right. The plot here is pretty ridiculous. It's a direct sequel, which you guys would find out that the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise is all just direct sequels to the first one. And it is the hardest film series to follow, one of them, maybe besides Halloween. So essentially, it stars Dennis Hopper, which is another combination from hell. We got Tobe Hooper, Dennis Hopper, Cannon Films. Dennis Hopper here is a sheriff, ranger. And he's out to get revenge for the deaths of his nephew, Franklin, and basically what happened to his niece and Sally. So he's basically on a revenge mission. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre crimes, they have the cold open with the narration from the original. And they say that after the crimes happened, no one could find the whereabouts of the family, but there's been Texas Chainsaw murders all around the state of Texas. So Lefty's been trying to figure out what's going on and trying to find them. That's the setup. The family is still roaming around as more of a nomadic group and cutting up people and making chili. The family consists of Leatherface, of course, the cook, and Chop Top, as well as Grandpa and the corpse of the hitchhiker. So that's pretty much the family. This is the introduction to Chop Top, which I love. And the weird thing is also, I'm kind of trailing off and going all over the place, but essentially there's a recorded murder at a news station, and that's how the, what's the hell is her name? The actress Stretch, but Caroline Williams gets involved with the whole thing. So, okay, I don't even know how to explain this fucking movie, because the first one, although it's supposed to be a comedy according to Hooper, it was not funny at all. It was a nightmare, and this movie is also a nightmare, but it is over-the-top splatter. Some people would say Grand Guignol. Also, not to mention Tom Savini does the special effects. So we got this, it's a four-fecta, not trifecta, of insanity. Mm-hmm. Tobe Hooper, Tom Savini, Dennis Hopper, Cannon Films. So since I'm a big fan of the movie, and it grew on me, it's just super weird. Bill Moseley's one of his best performances here. So what'd you think of it?
It's a fever dream, and it probably should never have existed. At no point did I ever think that I was watching a movie.
It's almost like a fan film.
It's like a fan film. It's like fan fiction. I don't think they ever said Leatherface in the original movie.
I think they say Leatherface once.
Who says Leatherface?
I think the cook calls him Leatherface, or the hitchhiker, just yelling at him.
Maybe. So it's nobody has a real name in this.
Yeah, they do. They got Bubba Sawyer.
They got Bubba.
And then we got Drayton Sawyer, and Chop Top never gets a real name. Nobody calls him Chop Top.
No one calls him Chop Top. The radio DJ, she has a real name, but everybody calls her Stretch. I guess.
Then they got LG,
Lefty. It's like, okay. All right, if that's what we're doing. It's the movie is 10 years too late. being made from its original.
But it's such an 80s movie.
It is an 80s movie. You know, it has like the same color and, you know,
Aesthetic
plot
of an 80s film.
aesthetics of an 80s film. It's like Gremlins 2, but Gremlins 2 is a fantastic movie.
Hey. And essentially, Rob Zombie would remake this movie as Devil's Rejects.
Yes, it is very much Devil's Rejects. I'm not a big fan of sequels. There are a few exceptions where I think a sequel is a superior film than the first. Really, that being Batman Returns and Gremlins 2.
Ghoulies 2.
I prefer Ghoulies 3, actually, when they go to college, because that has Kevin McCarthy in it.
Yeah, okay, so...
What do we got here? We have a whole lot of nothing. We have Quasimodo...
Leatherface,
who is portrayed by Quasimodo. There's like a weird love story going on.
I love the faces he makes under the mask with the eyes, like...
Right. It's such a weird, peculiar movie. There's haunted house hijinks.
Dude, the ending is insane. The sets are insane. Some of the stunts are insane. We start this movie off with a car chase on a bridge with a chainsaw. And right when I saw that in the script, I'm like, this is going to cost a lot of money, and I don't think this looks safe. And the idea that, like, at first you see the dangling body of the hitchhiker like this, and then you see the chainsaw behind it. It's just like, everything is like a fucking facade. It's such a weird movie.
Like, who would think that, like, one of the greatest films ever made, like... turned into this. It's like whoever wrote it got hit in the head. I think
it got hit in the head like LG.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And when LG's like all skinned alive, he's like, "Stretch, I love you. Stole my face and get out of here."
He just reminds me of your brother. If your brother was nicer.
It was just like, what is going on?
But honestly, there is like the movie. It's like an hour and 40 minutes. But the thing is, there's like 3 or 4 scenes in here which go on like with. It feels like almost like 15 minutes long a piece. The scene with LG and Stretch in there, and then there's also the scene in the radio studio that takes. It just and these scenes are great. I love them. But they seem to go on forever. Like I was like almost like nobody edited this. The way it ends too is just insane. Like. They don't even show what happens to half the people. Drayton Sawyer is fucking hilarious in it. He's probably the funniest part, the cook. I love that he's winning chili cook-offs, and just the stuff he goes about is so bizarre. The stuff he says, he's a small businessman getting fucked in the ass, that kind of stuff. Chop Top, it's just next level, like, disgust. It's like, half this stuff seems like it should have been on the cutting room floor, like Bill Moseley went too far, but Tobe Hooper's just like, I'm putting it all in. It's all going in. Like, it literally feels like that. It does, doesn't it? Like, the scene where he's, like, scratching with the coat hanger and chewing the flesh, you're just like... That is so disgusting. And at the end, he gives Grandpa a little bit, too. And Grandpa's like, ooh. I think the design on Grandpa is better in this one. And I actually like Grandpa better in this one. But I missed the scene where they cut the finger and shove it in Grandpa's mouth to wake him up. That's fucking amazing in the old one. I don't know. I like this movie a lot. It's not as good as the original. Nothing compares to that one. No. But it is a lot of fun. And it's just such a bizarre movie. It's almost as fun watching someone else watch it because you're just like staring at them, like them realizing that this was actually made. Canon Films has like, somebody should just do the top 10 Canon movies that I can't believe are fucking movies. And this has got to be in the top. Like Life Force is the same deal. Like while watching Life Force, I'm like, oh my God, who would pay for this? Like, I like Light Force a lot, but it's just like I'm watching it, I was like, this is just huge and weird and all over the fucking place, and it's made for such a small niche audience that doesn't even exist anymore, I don't think. So I'm just not sure who Tobe Hooper made movies for. I mean, they find their cult audience, and I like Tobe Hooper a lot. This is one of his better ones. I mean, I can't see how someone could... I understand you, but this is just too stupid for me. But, like, if you can let yourself go and not compare it to the first one, which I know a lot of people do, but I don't mind comparing it to the first one because it's the same director and I have context of where he was coming from. And it's just... I don't know. I really like it. I don't mind the performance of Leatherface. It's different from the first one. The cook is the same, just more comedic. Chop Top is a great addition because we couldn't have the hitchhiker because I don't think Edwin O'Neill would come back. Plus, he was dead, so it worked. Grandpa's great in it, too. And you get kind of a tied up thing here because it kind of ends them. You can assume they're all dead.
You can assume they're all dead. You know, I think it's also ambiguous, you know, for the sake of having a third.
Yeah, like you don't see them get blown up, but there's no way that Leatherface survived.
Is Leatherface in the third one?
The third one is a sequel to the first one again.
Okay.
Sort of.
All right.
Sort of. It's all fucked up. But what I will say is Dennis Hopper is one of my favorite actors. Dennis Hopper is one of the craziest actors of all time. He was also a filmmaker. His movies are fucking crazy, like The Last Movie, I think it's called The Last Movie, yeah. That's a nuts movie. The movie he directed, Backtrack, or what is the one, Cat Chaser, whatever, Jodie Foster is a horrible movie. But he's such a fantastic actor, and his performance is so weird in this. Like, I know that he wanted to make a movie in Texas, and the end, when he completely goes nuts. I'm the Lord of the Harvest. I'm going to bring it all down. And I know that I've heard other people make comments on it, like the dialogue he has back and forth with him that the cook tries to buy him out is fucking hilarious. Like, they're so weird and so oblivious to what the fuck they're doing. They live in their own world. And
Right.
the line when he's like, well, sex is, nobody knows what that is. But that's a great fucking delivery.
That's the cook, right?
Yeah. You think the cook's your favorite in this one?
No, I think it's Dennis Hopper.
It's Dennis Hopper's. No, Dennis Hopper is the best. But.
Right. I don't know. It does read like fan fiction, but not good fan fiction. It's it's like a fourth grader wrote it. I don't know. I'm sorry. I would give it 1 star if I
Are you
could.
serious?
Yes, I'm serious. It was a complete waste of my time, and I never want to watch
The
it
special
again.
effects are great.
There's
Dennis
what
Hopper's
special
great.
effects is
That
there?
guy's head gets chopped off. He has you dented my plate, you dog dick.
That's not a special effect.
He's got a plate in his head. That's a special effect. Bill Moseley doesn't have a plate in his
He
head.
just put foil on someone's head.
It looked good. The plate looked good. LG is also funny. He's also in Poltergeist. I like Stretch too. I love Stretch's voice. She's got a great voice, and you can't I don't know, sound like a pervert here, but like Daisy Duke shorts or whatever, they should bring those back.
I think they're everywhere.
I've never seen anyone wearing those shorts. Everybody should be wearing those shorts tomorrow.
You're wearing a house, and I got like weird leg hair.
You don't have to wear them,
Okay.
but everybody else should wear them. Anyways, I like it. I know, but the thing is, this movie I feel like grows on people. Like the first time you see it, you're like, what is this? And the soundtrack's weird too, because the soundtrack isn't like a score. It's all like just played into the moment. It's like interacting. I mean, different soundtracks, and that's common in a lot of soundtracks, but it's like interacting with the actual film. It's very playful and weird, and just bonkers like the rest of the movie. It's fucking weird. I don't even know how to go about it anymore. I wish that, you really can't make a sequel to this one, could you have? You'd have to be really sloppy.
Yeah, I don't know where you would go from here, honestly.
You know what? Sorry, before I forget. You know what I love about this movie? Is all the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies were like, oh, there's the house, and people go in and they get butchered. This time they're on the move. They're nomadic, and they travel out. They're out and about. They interact with other people. I fucking love that. And I also love that they have like a fun house of horrors, which plays in Tobe Hooper's movie Funhouse that he made before this, which is kind of the same thing. So I love that there's a giant fun house of horrors. And I do miss... Tobe Hooper's probably partially responsible for like them not giving horror directors money anymore like that. Like, here, free range, do whatever you want. You made Texas Chainsaw. It's one of the best horror movies ever. So here's some money for Invaders of Mars, Life Force, and Texas Chainsaw. And he's like, all right. And then he just makes these absolutely ridiculous movies that are huge. It probably costs a lot of money, and they don't bring back that much. There's a couple like that where you're like, who the fuck paid for this thing? But those are some of the coolest, most interesting movies, and I feel like without the Canon Film Group or Dino De Laurentiis doing it, like I feel like we don't really have those as many. Like as much as Blumhouse makes a lot of mid-tier movies that do successfully well, they would never feel like they would touch anything like fucking a Canon movie. Can you see them like producing Orca or fucking Texas Chainsaw 2? No.
Oh, it's Orca.
No, Orca's 76, 77, but it's a Dino movie.
Right.
So, that's also kind of a batshit crazy movie about a killer. I know it's a Jaws cash-in, but you're still thinking about it. The fucking thing attacks like a fucking coastal town.
And then they get like an abortion.
In the beginning, that movie's fucking nuts too. So many crazy movies that this is kind of what I live for, and not all of them are very good, but I enjoy watching them, and I have a sense of love for them. And all the movies I just mentioned there, I really like. And when it comes to some weird shit like Spooky's probably didn't have that much money behind it, but somebody fucking produced that weird mess of a movie, and I enjoy it to a certain extent. I like Spooky's, but I know. So I know you don't want to talk about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2 anymore. Hopper's great in it. So where's your book? I'll read my book first. John Stanley's Creature Features. Okay. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. 3 out of 5. Lawman Lefty Enright, Dennis Hopper, brother of one of the victims. That's wrong. Brother of one of the victims of the first film. Tracks his chainsaw killers using radio disc jockey Stretch. Karen Williams is bait. Director Toby Hooper's new cut and tear adventures of the Sawyer family comprise of a one odd movie. A hip, flip comment on various American mania. Personified by the return of Leatherface, chainsaw whacking specialist, Chop Top, the idiot with a metal plate in his head, and Grandpa, still trying to hit victims over the head with a sledgehammer, but usually missing. Yeah. Hooper captures a macabre humor from L.M. Kit Carson's groovy, a bit simplistic script, which turns to surreal horror once Stretch is trapped in underground caverns of an abandoned tourist attraction. Hooper turns Grand Guignol into the farce and sociological subtext, and Hooper is a standout with chainsaws strapped to his side like six-shooters. Gory, not for the squeamish, but the satire makes it a must-see. He is wrong about the brother. He's also acting like Chop Top's a reoccurring character. I think he thought Chop Top was the hitchhiker, to be honest, which I don't think is the case. And
where's the satire? Is this movie?
Well, it's got the satire of, you know, the cook trying to be like a businessman and carry the small business and shit like that. Also, it has Chop Top being obsessed with like the media, the music and everything like that. She's my favorite. Oh, and all that kind of stuff. So it's there. I mean, it's some comments on it, but it's also insane. Oh, I have to mention the scene where Hooper gets the double chainsaws, and that old guy's like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" He's just like drooling and shit.
I have to mention this scene where he finds the guy in the woods who's like, "I'll avenge you, Franklin."
Oh, Franklin.
It's like, Franklin. Could you get any more try? All right.
Love it.
Oh, trash. All right, Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2.
Show the book.
2 stars. Oh. Out of 4.
Tear on tape, James O'Neill.
So, you know, this guy is saying that's barely a movie.
He says 50%.
50%. And I quote, "This long, overlong, underwritten sequel features Hopper in a zesty performance as a retired Texas Ranger after the Chainsaw family who murdered his nephew and drove his niece mad, who are now relocated under a dilapidated old Wild West amusement park, far bloodier than the original, with the gory but routine Tom Savini makeup effects. This has some nice black comic touches, like the Chainsaws becoming popular Houston caterers, but completely lacks the pacing and grisly atmosphere of its classic predecessor," which I would agree.
He knew a lot about the original. He didn't fuck up like the other guy. I don't know if...
then you gotta hopscotch and, you know, the chef.
All right, so out of 10 stars or...
Out of 10 stars, I would award this 0 stars.
Shut up.
Out of 5,
Shut
I
up.
would do 1.
You 1-star movie.
I'll give this a 1 star. I never want to watch this again.
Well, I got to give it 10 then.
Okay, you can give it
9.5 out of 10. All right, 9.
Really, a 9?
I love it.
Okay.
It's probably, objectively, it's like a 8 for me. Like I mean, I don't know if I can even objectively go about this movie. I like watching it. Maybe your immense like pain with it brought me more joy. So like normally it would be like an 8, but watching you be like, I don't know what's going on. I don't understand why this. And I was just like.
If I could put it into scale, did I enjoy it? No. Do I want to watch it again? No. If you told me I had to watch this or had to watch Jeremy Irons whine about not getting ice cream to his other Jeremy Irons, I'd probably watch this again. But
you hate Dead Ringers. We still got to do that thing, don't we? We got to talk about the blind spot segment and then rank our movies. We've been keep putting it off every week.
Yeah, because we just can't be bothered. Literally cannot be bothered.
We don't have time.
Next week
is your pick.
Is my pick.
I opened the package today thinking it was for me, and I was like, I saw it, and I was like, what is this? I had no idea what it was. I don't know. I've never even seen the cover.
It's Pirates of Penaz.
I don't know what the fuck that is.
Don't even look it up. You're gonna enjoy it.
What decade?
80s, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about this movie, guys. This is a first. Rarely do I see. Not that I'm like I know everything, but rarely do I see a cover of a movie and I'm like, I don't think I know what that is. Anyways, Jeremy's wrong. Everybody comment on how wrong he is about disliking Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre, even in the title, you have the title Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2 with Hopscotch.
Dennis Hopper.
And Scratch.
Yeah, I think that you would appreciate this movie more if you watched the other sequels. Part 3, direct sequel to 1. Part 4, direct sequel to 1. And then we have the remake.
Well, hold on.
Then, let me finish. Then we have a prequel to the remake. And then we have one that is a sequel to the original again. And then we have one that is a prequel to the original.
You're telling me that, like, you would appreciate this movie more if you watched Real Trash.
Yes, I would.
You don't know
And
how bad it gets.
I don't even think that Part 3 is that bad. Part 4 is pretty rough. And I don't mind the remake and the prequel of the remake.
I like the remake, actually.
I turned Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3D off. And Leatherface, I did not like at all. It felt like bad Rob Zombie, which in itself is like a ripoff of Tobe Hooper's movies. So I don't know what the fuck Leatherface is. It's like, this is bad Rob Zombie ripping off Tobe Hooper. You're making a prequel to Tobe Hooper. I don't fucking know.
Leatherface, is that...
That's the one where they're like this.
The guy jumps out of the window.
For no reason. Like,
in the wheelchair. And I'm like, what happened? I thought he was dead. Okay.
I don't know. I don't want to talk about Leatherface anymore.
They jump out the window twice in the first one. The first one's a beautiful movie.
First one's the best.
First one's a 5-star movie, you know.
And so is the second one.
No, the second one is... I've never given a half a star before.
You can't give a half a star. You're crazy. Mm-hmm. You like this less than Magic?
No.
Less than Pin?
Oh, God, Pin was terrible.
This guy doesn't like anything.
Next week's movie will be a 5-star movie.
Fucking doubt it. We're done.
Bye.
Okay, before I hop into the questions and comments and all that kind of good stuff, I want to give some patron shout-outs. So it's Kuno Mogensen. Hopefully I said your name right. Brian Nielsen, David Luton, and Kenneth Grimm. I appreciate your Patreon donations and everything like that. If I missed anyone, let me know. So let's hop into these questions. So Jake Adams says, who's Charlie? Who's Charlie? Who's Charlie? That's a joke to 22 Shots, best of 2005. Easy Misio, funny you mentioned Bag Boy Lover Boy because it was actually my number 1 or 2 of 2014. I could get into The Greasy Strangler, but then I love fingers. That was puzzling to even me. My taste for horror comedy, rare, is largely inconsistent for the most part. The Eyes of My Mother is fantastic. The Wailing was just alright for me. Not sure what the worst film of 1970 would be. That's basically what I asked, what the worst film of 1970 was, horror film, would be. But I bet the worst ones would at least be equivalent to an average film from 2005. Really hoping you guys would draw 1974, 75, 77, or 79 one day. So many great titles in those years. Bag of pickles, haha, hey man, whether in a bag or jar, I'll eat them. Pickles rule. Pickles are awesome. DM1, my vote for worst of 1970 is Flesh Feast. I have the old Beverly Wilshire Filmworks DVD and have found no need to watch it in any other form. I haven't seen Bloodthirsty Butchers yet, though. Mark Jones at large. I see Dave hit the MV sale. I didn't realize Mother was on 4K. George Hilton. Oh man, you really ought to dive into that Pete Walker set in your collection. I know. Hunger for Horror, another great video. I love Hunting Ground I have Hunting Ground on order, and I'm looking forward to seeing it after hearing great review after great review on it. Coco Loco. I never thought I'd hear someone compare The Killing of a Sacred Deer with The Greasy Strangler. But yes, it makes perfect sense. Love both movies and your series. Keep up the good work. Howl of the Devil went straight to my watch list. The Eyes of My Mother is an underrated gem as well. Love Eyes of My Mother. David Leather, best cinema show on the frickin' internet. Thank you. Nick Mua, the new You Ain't Seen It segment is pure gold. I'm being introduced to some hidden gems for sure. Thank you, sir. Also extend my thanks to your loyal squire, Jeremy. And then, as for the week's question, I was always intrigued by the dark British Penny Dreadful story, Sweeney Todd. What Andy Milligan did to it could be considered criminal in its own right. In the words of Mr. John Carpenter, this is caca, Prince of Darkness. This classic chilling tale was butchered. Shoddily shot, creaky acting, and a drab color scheme. Yuck. Times infinity squared with a rotten cherry on top. Questions. Why do you think the Conjuring films are so popular? Some of the actors themselves have stated that these films offer accessible scares for the whole family. Is this just tame horror for wallflowers and scaredy cats? No, I mean, I'm not the best judge. If you ever ask, like, mainstream American ghost stories story or possession movie, I'm not the person to ask if they like it because I'm going to be harsher than I should. No, they're very accessible, and a lot of people don't watch 8,000 movies every year, right? Not everybody sits down and watches 30 ghost stories a year or 50 ghost stories a year and sees all these things. So they pop it in, they watch one, and they're like, oh, this is like the best of hits of them. So, like, and also it's accessible. It's not anything really transgressive or anything crazy that they see. So for everyday people, I think the Conjuring movies are fine, and if you can just let your guard down and watch them without, like, over-critiquing them or constantly thinking about other movies, they're fine for everybody. I just don't really care for the first one. It feels like kids bought, best of ghost and possession movies of the 70s. The second one I enjoyed a lot more, probably because of production design, and I really like Patrick Wilson. And when it comes to Annabelle Creation, I enjoyed that as well. So I just have to adjust somewhat, and I can be a snobby guy sometimes. We all have our hang-ups and certain things like that. So, like, I had my hang-ups with those comedies. They're just not, it's so subjective. It's not funny at all to me. I'm sorry. If it's not funny, I'm just watching people say stupid shit, and I'm not going to laugh. That's just the way it is. As far as, like, the Conjuring movies, like, yeah, I can see why people enjoy some of them. I just don't enjoy everything. But I did enjoy Conjuring 2 and Annabelle Creation out of the ones I've seen. So then we have you seen Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead yet? If so, care to share your thoughts? I will when I watch it. I don't know when I'll be able to find 2.5 hours to watch a zombie movie that looks more like an action thing. Will the Romero-style zombie ever expire, or do you see it going on and on? I don't know. They're always making zombie movies, and they're always changing the things. They're always different. So, I mean, Romero's films in general will never expire because, for me, they always get better with age. So the Romero zombie, therefore, will live through his films, even if they don't continue to make zombies that do that. But I think there'll always be hardcore fans that do. Mandy Cage, I'm going to order Hall of the Devil. Thanks for the review. I'm new to Naschy films. What do you recommend? I'm leaning towards The Devil Incarnate or Panic Beats. I was thinking Magic Sword, but I'm 50-50 on it. Would you recommend that? Thanks. I would recommend Beast with the Magic Sword, but out of The Devil Incarnate or Panic Beats, go with The Devil Incarnate. I thought that was really great. And Horror Rises from the Tomb is very fun. If you want to see a movie that I'm not a Naschy expert. I'm learning about Naschy myself. But the ones I've seen, I'm tell you which ones I like. If you want to see Naschy in a non-starring role and kind of a supporting role, People Who Own the Dark is a really great film too. If you're into the post-apocalyptic zombie style movies. So then we have D. Gluglock. Wish these were daily. Thank you. Ken Coakley. It's really tough for me to come up with a horror movie from 1970 that I didn't like. The 70s was the best decade, along with the 30s for cinema. 1970 alone had some gems. If I were to throw a movie under the bus, it would be The Wizard of Agor. I liked it to a degree, but H.G. Lewis has done better. Ken Coakley. The following story will depress any movie collector. The Pete Walker question triggered me. A little bit because I lost all my Pete Walker films in one fell swoop. I'm in a nursing home trying to walk again. Sorry about that. I ordered about 20 redemption titles to have something to watch at this nursing home. When a person is in rehab, they have to change rooms. I moved into the room that I'm now in, and they forgot the box of redemption titles, as well as my Forgotten Jolly Volume 2, as well as the Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3, and Thunderbolt and Lightfoot. I mentioned it in my second day in this room, and the staffers say they will look into my old room. They never did. The guy I shared the old room with died, so now I'm afraid that they threw the movies out, thinking the movies were his. Of course, I will make the last effort to see if they're still in the building. If not, I will demand compensation from the company that runs this hellhole. Yes, you should. That's absolute bullshit. I can't imagine. I feel sorry, man. That absolutely sucks. I just feel like I would be so. I'm getting mad for you. Like if they literally, I just can't imagine like people touching my stuff. I'm just like, I think that it would be. I know you gotta have stuff to watch there, but it would be really nice if you had a digital library that like you had access to, so you didn't have to worry about your hard format stuff being there. If that makes any sense. I'm really sorry about what's happening, man. I hope you get better quick and get the hell out of there and get your redemption titles back. Bad Brains Horror. Hey, Dave. The Anson's Woods looks... it's also Wolf of the Woods for people. Looks amazing. Can you list some hidden gems no one talks about? The 1970 was a good draw. Honeyground also looks like a great film. Haven't seen El Topo yet, but love Santa Sangre. Hope I win. Great stuff. Are you looking forward to watching the films in the theater again? Yeah, I eventually will. I just haven't got a chance to go very much to theater. I get lazy, even though the theater's right down the street from me. I live in an area where it's very close to everything. Yeah, some other hidden gems. Let me think. It's really hard on the spot to what's considered a hidden gem. Let's just go Freeze Me. That's not like The Wolf in the Woods, though. It's very different. Freeze Me is like a rape revenge film. And I thought that was kind of a hidden gem. Geez, what else? I'm trying to think. 2005, what's a hidden gem? Because we do these years, and that's kind of where you see the hidden gems. Medium, from 1985. It's called The Medium. It's a Polish film. Another hidden gem. Check that one out. Make sure you see it. I think it's on Netflix. It's called Medium from 1985, or The Medium. I thought that was kind of a hidden gem. The Strangler from 1970 was also a hidden gem, I thought, that not many people talk about, more of a thriller. Let me think of some more from 1985. Trying to think. Boom, 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 boom. I think most of the ones I really... 2005 had definitely some hidden gems. Id was a hidden gem. I thought that was absolutely insane from Tokyo Shock. So there's some that I just named off the top of my head. Peter England. It's crazy how many Dutch films they've been releasing in the U.S. on Blu-ray, and not even in the Netherlands. You said you're going to review The Cool Lakes of Death. Is that the English title? A.K.A. Van der Kool Merlin des Dudes next week? I love that movie. I've got the 3-hour version, which what they did sometimes with theatrical Dutch movies. They released a sort of mini-series version on TV, much longer than the original version. Renee Sotijic, or of the latter movie, and Monique van de Ven were the biggest Dutch actresses of the 1970s and 80s. Both played in Paul Verhoeven movies. Van de Ven in Turkish Delight with Rutger Hauer. Some considered it the best Dutch film of all time. Although for me personally, it's Paul Verhoeven's Soldier of Orange with Rutger Hauer and Krab. And Sojic and Paul Verhoeven's Spetters, also with Rutger Hauer and Jonathan Karim. And The Fourth Man, sort of a Dutch giallo. All of them highly recommended. Yeah, I actually seen Fourth Man. I covered that one, and I thought it was really great and entertaining. Ben Masters, the red line you mentioned in Dawn of the Dead, isn't that supposed to be blood splurting? I don't think so. It goes right across the screen. It doesn't look like blood to me. It looks like something wrong with the film. Robert Cruz, Blood Mania, that one was a snooze fest for me. Mike Merriman, all the ones you've been watching for prep, probably. Fuck you, Mike. Troy Howarth, Trog, which I think is great. And then he mentioned something else when he got back and forth. He said it's not even fun bad. Freddie Francis appeared to stop trying after Dracula has risen from the grave, with the notable exception of Tales from the Crypt and The Creeping Flesh. Fortunately, he went back to cinematography and did amazing work for David Lynch, Martin Scorsese, etc. Granted, the script was horrid, but he totally phones it in, and apparently poor Crawford needed cue cards by then, which maybe sapped his enthusiasm even more. I don't blame him. And I mentioned Grizzly being made around the same time, 1970, and he says it's borderline horror, I suppose, more of a dark comedy. It has its moments. And then Rod Lab, Horror Frankenstein, the worst. He says it was horrible and continued my hate affair with Ralph Bates. Hated him, absolutely. I like Ralph Bates and everything except Horror Frankenstein myself. Aaron Uverna, The Wizard of Gore. Jason McKinley, Flesh Feast. Okay. Nick Mua, if you ask this question regarding 2020, you get flooded with answers. Yep. David Michael Garrett Jr., according to Letterboxd, for me, it's Blood of Dracula's Castle. It's been years since I've seen it, though. Matt Pocock, Horror Frankenstein, though Trog sounds delightfully atrocious. Might hunt that one down. So, okay, this question of the week is a little bit of a mouthful, but I wanted to ask it. To me, every once in a while, I'll see like an actor or an actor's past and a character in a certain thing, and I'm like, that actor would have been absolutely perfect to play this character. It's a shame that it has passed. So, like, basically when you cast a movie in your head, you think of characters like Hunchback of Notre Dame. The guy who ran, like, the leader of the gypsy kind of guys would have been perfect, played by Kolpan, I think, would have been perfect as Telly Savalas, right? Like, so I basically want to know an actor who would have played a character perfect. You could take any actor and put it to any film or any book or anything. Another one that to me would have been perfect if we would have made a Spider-Man movie in the 80s or a Daredevil movie in the 80s or a Punisher movie in the 80s. If Nicolas Worth would have played Kingpin. He was made to play the Kingpin. Like, he perfect Kingpin right there in the 70s or 80s, Nicolas Worth. And like I said, it would have been perfect to get Telly Savalas as like Clopan or something. Not Clopan. Who's the leader of the gypsy guys in the end of Hunchback of Notre Dame, the book? But like, there's just so many actors that came to mind to play these characters that are no longer around that I think would have been really great. So, which actor would have been perfect to play a character that you wanted to see? So something like that. Any actor, any character, whatever. So would have been perfect. Like, I know a lot of people said back in the day, like Clint Eastwood would have been a good Wolverine in the 60s or 70s. Like, he felt like he was supposed to be. Wolverine came out in the 70s, though, I think, right? The comic. I can't remember. When he made his debut against the Hulk. Was he fought the Hulk as the first time he came out? Anyways, yeah, I guess we're going to hop into the update. Okay, this is going to be a super quick update. Okay, I bought a copy of Secret of NIMH for myself because I enjoyed it so much. It was very cheap. I was like, might as well grab one myself. I don't know. So it was only a few bucks, so why not? Enjoyed it a lot. And this next is the big boy. It is the Eurocrypt of Christopher Lee collection. The problem is I buy these sets and I'd love to review the whole thing. I just know I'll never have time. But we have, what's in this bad boy? Sherlock Holmes and the Deadly Necklace, Challenge the Devil, Crypt of the Vampire, Castle of the Living Dead, The Torture Chamber of Dr. Sadism, Theater Macabre. So 9 discs in a book set, 8 Blu-rays plus 1 CD. This set looks awesome. I love Christopher Lee. What can I say? Who doesn't? Any good horror fan should. Any film fan should love Christopher Lee. Anyways, this set's pretty durable stuff. It's kind of like in line more with the Vinegar Syndrome box sets that come out. But anyways, awesome set. Can't wait to dive into that when I eventually get a chance in 100 years. Next week, I should have a lot more stuff. My Vinegar Syndrome order should come in and that kind of stuff. But yeah, pretty short this time. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching. And as always, have a good one.
Bullshit.
Bullshit artist.
Oh, why couldn't you just died yesterday?